Welcome to our Devos. This week we are talking about acknowledging God and what that means. It was a heavier subject on Sunday, but I want to make this really, really practical. In what ways does acknowledging him look like on the day-to-day? What ways does knowing him intimately, knowing what he wants, what does that look like on an everyday situation? Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that we want to do as making a part of our character and our identity is to love others like him. Now, what I mean by that is, it's a little confusing there, but not love others that resemble God, no, but you love others the way he loves others. You make that your standard, your basis for how you will treat and love others. Different type of situation. Now, this is going to come as a shock to some of you, but I occasionally will have to deal with people that are a little bit difficult. And just like you, I have flesh. And just like you, I have a mouth. And so sometimes my flesh gets the better of me and my mouth gets ahead of me. Before I know it, I'm finding myself in need of repentance. Now, what is the equalizer? What keeps us from going there is by constantly acknowledging God by how he loves other people. We want to love people the way that Jesus loved people. And you're like, well, that's a revolutionary idea. Well, the good news is it's not mine. Jesus says in John chapter 13, verse 34, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. If you remember, there were the three commandments. I call this the three commandments. The three commandments that Jesus emphasized. They said, what are the most important commandments? The first one is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Okay, so he tells people that. And they're like, okay. And then he goes, but there's another one that's just like it, which is love your neighbor as yourself. So he says you can't love the invisible God while you also simultaneously hate visible people, essentially. Now, on top of that, we have this idea that Jesus ups the game of that commandment by saying, I'm going to give you a new commandment, and that commandment is that you will love others the way that I have loved you. Now, at this time, when the disciples hear this, they're like, oh, yeah, he's really cool to us. But what they don't know is that very shortly, he is going to be hanging on a cross. He's going to be praying for his enemies that are literally nailing him to the cross, and he is going to die for the sins of the entire world. He says, this is the standard of love. If you want to acknowledge me in your relationships, you want to treat people the way that I have treated you. That is the most difficult commandment to observe because we want to win. We want to be right. We don't want to have ourselves, our names maligned. We don't want to have the ability to lose the fight. We have that trouble. But in reality, Jesus sets the perfect example. If you want to acknowledge me in your relationships, I want you to treat other people the way I've treated you. That means you forgive ridiculously. That means that you overlook offenses. That means that you have hard conversations out of love and grace and not out of pride and anger. That means that in times of difficulty, you are there in the ministry of silence, as opposed to always having to give the right answer. That you love someone by giving them what is most important to you, whether it be your time, your money, your energy, your attention, whatever it is. You love others the way he loved you. You acknowledge Jesus in your relationships by acknowledging that you know how he loved you and by making that the baseline by how you love everyone else.